Hello everyone, my name is Toon, and today I'll be presenting about Yasui. And in this presentation, I'll look at how it used rhetoric to argue and try to appeal to the audience to show that the treatment of Japanese Americans during World War II was unconstitutional. Additionally, I will also connect this piece to Herrick's idea of rhetoric as well. So yeah, let's get started. So first, to understand the text fully, we first have to consider its historical context. So after the bombing of Pearl Harbor in 1941, there was an increased amount of anti-Japanese sentiment in the United States. So this led to the publish of the public proclamation number 3. Basically, all people of Japanese ancestry were put into a curfew, and if they were caught breaking the curfew, they were to be jailed. And additionally, the president also pushed a executive order 9066. Basically, this allowed the military to force Japanese people into these camps, and it text in the text specifically stated all people of Japanese descent or more were evacuated and removed into internment camp, including both Isai and Nisai, meaning both immigrants and U.S. born citizen. This is essentially important because it shows that the policy was not really based on people's action, their individuals' action, but on ancestry alone. So this created a situation that Yasai eventually have to respond to, where citizens are being treated unequally under the law. So the summary of the article, this text follow Minoru Yasui, a Japanese American lawyer who actively challenged these policy. According to the text, Yasui had a law degree from the University of Oregon, and he deliberately broke the curfew law in order to test their constitutionality. He even, for instance, he had to argue his way into jail. Also, it states that he refused to report for evacuation and took his case to Supreme Court, where he ultimately lost in page 304. The text is structured in multiple sections, including reflection on Executive Order 9066, resistance, his statement upon sentencing, and his letter written from jail. This structure is important because it allows the reader to see both his legal argument and his personal experience to that straighten the rhetorical impact of the piece. Um, so the main argument of this piece is that the interment and curfew policy violated the fundamental constitutional rights. This is clearly shown when Yasui argues that accepting this policy would be derogating the rights of all citizens, and this means that if one group rights can be taken away, then all citizen rights are at risk. The text also emphasized that no Japanese Americans were charged with espionage or sabotage, which further weakens the justification for imprisonment. So overall, the argument is that these policies were not based on evidence, factual evidence, but on mostly fear and discrimination. And one of the way he tries to appeal to his argument is through ethos, credibility. Yasui builds strong ethos throughout the text by presenting himself as this educated, rational, and loyal citizen to the United States. The text did mention that he had military training and did attempt to report for duty during the wartime, but he was rejected again and again because of his Japanese ancestry. This is important because it highlights a contradiction where he is willing to serve and die for his country, yet he is treated not as a full citizen by the United States government. In his statement upon sentencing, he shows respect for the court, saying he has utmost respect for it. On page 307, he also states that he has lived, believed, worked, and aspired as an American. This build credibility because like it shows like he is not really acting out of anger but out of principle. His tone is like I like to think is to be calm and like respectful and confident, which makes his argument to be more uh, credible and persuasive. Additionally, he tries to argue it through logos as well. Um, I think this text mainly uses logos because like Yasui constantly question like whether the military has the authority to like single out a specific group of U.S. citizen on the basis of ancestry on page 305. This is a logical key point because like, it challenges the fairness of the policy. He also like relies on constitutional principle, particularly the idea that rights should apply equally to all citizens. And another important logical point is that if the government can take away rights from one group without evidence, it sets a dangerous path, expanding his argument beyond his own case, like broader issues of civil rights as well. So his legal use of reasoning makes his argument like difficult to dismiss. Additionally, he also convey his message through pathos. At the same time, Yasui described the condition of his experience in these camps, mentioning the like they're being treated as animal, as like the description of like the barbed wire fences, armed guards, and uncertainty about what would happen to him during his time inside these camps. These details like created a strong emotional image of confinement and fear, and he also talked about how his family being taken away and how innocent people were treated as like these threats. And another section he reflected on how people were pressured to accept injustice, saying that you to start to question like what did I do. This shows the psychological impact of the situation. Overall, these emotional elements makes the audience feel the injustice and not just to understand it logically. Um, so, Slide 8, quotation analysis. One of the most powerful quotes in the text came from his statement, I have never and will never voluntarily relinquish my American citizenship. This is important because it combines all three of these rhetorical appeals. First, it builds ethos by showing his identity as an American citizen, cementing that he is not rejecting the country, he is claiming his place within it. Additionally, it supports logos because it reinforces his legal argument that he is entitled to the same right as any other citizen. Third, it creates pathos because it shows his determination and personal commitment even while facing punishment. The tone is calm but firm, which make it more powerful, and he is not like emotional in a chaotic way. And most of the time, he seems to be well controlled and like confident in his ideals, which like further strengthening his credibility. Um, so Herrick concept. Uh, this piece strongly reflects Herrick's idea that rhetoric is a response to a situation. According to Herrick, rhetoric is created in response to specific historical conditions. It is shaped by the problem that people are facing at a given moment. In this case, Yasui rhetorical rhetoric is a direct response to the World War II and the imprisonment of Japanese Americans, and the fear after Pearl Harbor created a situation where rights were being restricted for people of Japanese ancestry. So Yasui actions of him like breaking curfew, arguing his way into jail, and going to court, and then writing these letters, are all responses to this situation. Meaning that it meant his rhetoric is meant to challenge the government and define what the constitutional principle is. And without this historical context, and his argument would not exist in the same way, showing that rhetoric is deeply connected to like real world events. So primary source. His letter he wrote from jail act as a primary source within the text. In one letter, he reflects on American ideals like liberty and justice, and says that the principle of democracy are being distorted. He also warns that treating citizens based on race creates a dangerous precedent and threatens democracy itself. When he wrote these letters to his family, these are important because it shows his thoughts in a personal and more direct way. And unlike his court statement, which appears more formal, these letters reveal his like actual emotion and like deeper reflection on the situation at hand. And these letters straighten the argument by showing that even while in prison, he continues to believe and defend the Constitution in his own idea that the Japanese citizens are like being treated unequally. And arrangement. Additionally, the arrangement of the text also contribute to its argument. It first begin with like this historical context that moves into Yasui action, followed by his legal argument, and finally his personal letter. That it allows to reader to like understand the situation, and then see how Yasui responds, and then understand like the deeply understand his like emotional context behind the formal processes. I think by ending with his letter, the text leaves like a strong repression, by shifting away from like legal reasoning to like personal reflection, which makes the argument feels more connected to the reader. And so by these combination of structure and content strengthening like the overall rhetorical effectiveness. I think that's how I should call it. And then slide 12. Its significance. This text is not only about Yasui personal experience, and also about the larger issue of civil rights in America. It shows like how fear and like prejudice can lead to the violation of rights even in a democratic society. It also raises question about how government should act during time of war, and whether like security should come at the cost of like people's freedom. And these issues are still like relevant in today's society, which is why this text continues to matter. So in conclusion, in conclusion, overall, this piece used rhetoric to like show that the treatment of Japanese Americans during World War II was like not constitutional and like unjust. As usual, through ethos, Yasui established himself as a credible and loyal citizen, and through locals, he builds a strong constitutional argument, and through pathos, he reveals the emotional and the human side of how the imprisonment has infected not only him but as well as others. And by connecting this to the idea that rhetoric responds to a situation, we can see that Yasui's argument is shaped by a historical moment of fear and like discrimination. So ultimately, his story reminds us that rights are not guaranteed unless they are defended, especially during times of like crisis. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.